Recently, Spiders STG, a friend of the channel and a great YouTuber in his own right, made a video showing off how easily exploitable the new Shinobi game is and how brain dead and ineffective the enemies are, making it incredibly easy to avoid combat, way easier than it should have been. But the most brain dead thing that I saw in the first video was not the enemy AI, nor the lack of contact damage upon running through the enemies, but some of the comments. Not all of them, mind you, but the worst of them were so delusional and beyond your typical fanboy stuff that you have to read them for yourselves. They claimed that the video was done in bad faith, and that things were taken out of context and manipulated to make the game look worse than it actually was, even though it's real gameplay footage with no significant jump cuts or anything shady. Some of them even accused him of not playing the game properly, or not engaging with the game, which is absolutely absurd. In fact, Spiders put some of these comments in his follow-up video, while showing even more examples of the same types of problems he talked about in the first video. Even more evidence of bad game design, but the fanboys were no longer around for the second round, because from personal experience, that's usually how it goes. I've been through this myself with a couple of my own videos in the past. He's had even more videos with more evidence at the time of me recording this video of mine, and almost none of the fanboys came back for those either. But how do people get caught up in defending a game even when presented with video evidence showcasing actual problems with said game, denying the reality that is right in their faces? Well, it's very simple actually. These people got stuck in their own echo chamber that they created. You see, last year, I talked about this problem in my video criticizing the YouTube algorithm. I warned that this is leading to gamers becoming more divided and not understanding each other, and it's also discouraging critical thought and just making gamers dumber in the longer run. But who knows where it actually started? Maybe it did start on YouTube with them getting hyped by other YouTubers praising the game right after release, and prior to that, maybe they had seen a bunch of preview videos and trailers. But maybe it started with being on Reddit, where dissent is quickly squashed, and a hive mind consensus prevails while everything else gets downvoted into oblivion on a lot of subreddits. Maybe it started with hanging out with like-minded people on Discord without any dissent, or maybe even a Facebook group. Their confidence grew even stronger when the game came out and the almost unanimously positive reviews came in from the professional video game media. Never mind that gaming journalists are some of the worst gamers on earth that can't break down gameplay mechanics in a meaningful way to save their lives most of the time. Now, the gaming media could not care about these fanboys. They're writing these positive reviews so that they don't piss off the video game publishers that run ads on their website that help keep them afloat. They also don't want to lose access for interviews in the future either. But regardless of how it happened, these people created their own echo chamber online, probably consisting of multiple places, full of delusional hype about this game where nothing else could get in. Until Spiders made a video called Shinobi, and thanks to the YouTube algorithm slipping up a little bit or someone else posting a link to it. Then these people lost it as soon as they saw that title and the thumbnail. So they had to go in and give Spiders a piece of their mind, as laughable as that might sound to anyone that is familiar with Spiders and his YouTube channel. I'm not even sure if a lot of them had played the game yet. Maybe a lot of them did, maybe some of them didn't, but they just didn't want to hear the criticism. And when these fanboys started getting challenged in response to their feeble, ill-conceived comments, most of them couldn't even hold an intelligent conversation about gameplay, or they just sidestepped and deflected, which is what happened most of the time. Some of them couldn't even spell and write with proper grammar or capitalization either. This is exactly what I warned people about in that video on the algorithm over a year ago. These people's brains got fried online. They couldn't think for themselves, and went into attack mode whenever someone challenged their views. No critical thought at all, even when presented with legitimate video evidence showcasing actual gameplay problems, which is the most amazing part of all. Even some of the people in the comment section that did enjoy the game were able to admit that the lack of difficulty was an issue, because they could see the reality in front of them, but not these brainwashed fanboys. Most of this was complete tribalism at its worst. Some of the worst that I've ever seen, considering that it's Shinobi we're talking about. which is a franchise that's been dormant for over a decade. And if it wasn't lashing out, it was the denial of reality by accusing spiders of being misleading and not playing the game the way it was supposed to be played, which is completely absurd because the game allowed him to play that way. And before you say it was just a bunch of trolls, I disagree to an extent. If it was one or two people acting like this, yeah, I'd agree, and I'm sure the most disrespectful comments, they were probably trolls. However, there was even a channel with over 60,000 subscribers pulling this nonsense against spiders. Plus, whenever his first video would get posted elsewhere by others, like on the Steam forums or Reddit, there were a lot of responses deflecting and accusing spiders of being deliberately deceiving and trying to make the game look a lot worse than it actually was, without addressing what was actually going on in the gameplay footage. Overall, it was just too many people to be one or two trolls. Now, after all that, you might be wondering what makes it worse than the fanboys of the past. After all, fanboys in video games have been around for a long time. Remember Sega versus Nintendo? Good times. Even generations 5 and 6 had a lot of fanboys fighting each other even though Sony dominated. But back in those days, there wasn't as much information out there. This was especially true before broadband internet took off and dial-up was still supreme. As I discussed in my video earlier this year talking about how the digital world changed gaming, we had to go out of our way to find information about our favorite hobby. And because of that, you ran a higher risk of stumbling upon opinions and information that could potentially challenge your previously held notions. For example, whenever I would read other gaming magazines from time to time like GamePro instead of my usual Nintendo Power, I learned that other systems had games that I would have loved to have played on a Nintendo console. And that's not even getting into the fact that gaming was less online and more social back then, because online gaming was still fairly young. If you were a little Nintendo fanboy at school back in the early 2000s, you couldn't be too delusional because you'd soon realize that most of the kids got a PS2 for Christmas instead of a GameCube. And while you might have loved your GameCube, the PS2 was clearly the king of gaming at that point and you had to accept that. You couldn't get away with today's delusional trolling in person back in those times, whether it be at home and at school. And even on the old message boards back in those days, the fanboys used to get challenged right away. You even had places like System Wars on GameSpot where it was kind of made for the fanboys to just go at it with each other. But today it's a different story. Thanks to these algorithms pushing content to people all the time, you can create your own hopium and get high off your own supply. No need for pesky critical thought, reason, and evidence getting in the way. All you have to do is look for a few things that you like at the moment, and then the algorithm can take it from there. Plus, once the content you want in your feed is there, you don't need a whole lot of intelligence in order to doom scroll through social media. In the right places, you can be as delusional as you want to be, and that's not a good thing, obviously. I'm also not sure if some of these people have ever really been told no in life before, or challenged on their beliefs in any significant way in person. I highly doubt it. I guess with the advent of social media and the internet becoming more mainstream, people also feel bigger because they can easily hide behind a screen and say almost anything they want. That's not even getting into the fact that we have plenty of studies now showing that social media makes people miserable. Plus, there are also concerns about whether people can discern legitimate sources from bad sources. However, I would also argue that some of these so-called legitimate sources are not what they're cracked up to be, and that there's a reason a lot of people distrust legacy media. That's not helping this problem either. I've even seen this problem of self-brainwashing on my own channel in response to some of my own critical videos, where a handful of users come in with that must defend master mentality and are not willing to engage in a real conversation. Sometimes it's clear that they barely watched my video or they're just responding to the thumbnail. I think a lot of them want to feel like they're owning me, but in reality, they're just making themselves look foolish most of the time. Sometimes the negative feedback is constructive and I'll engage with those posts. But oftentimes it's just delusional babble from fanboys, irrelevant arguments, deflecting, or flat out trolling. And yeah, there's always going to be trolls, but I think the brain rot has been getting worse, and the trolls now are dumber than they were 15 to 20 years ago. The ideal critical reaction in this situation, if you were a fan of the game, would have been, you know what? I like this game, but maybe there is a flaw or two with this game that I didn't realize until I saw this video. Thank you for pointing it out. At least acknowledge the reality in front of you. That would have been pretty easy to say and a lot smarter than acting like the gameplay footage was somehow in bad faith and deliberately edited to be deceiving. Just because you watch a negative video doesn't mean that you have to completely change your opinion on a game or go into attack mode against a video. There is a logical middle road that can involve you enjoying a game while still acknowledging an obvious issue with it. But I don't think these fanboys will consider that because being a fanboy is probably their whole personality if not their life at this point. This one aspect of their life has arguably become their religion, in place of some actual religion that's been around for a long time. They are devout followers of their newfound religion, since they brainwashed themselves to be that way through their echo chambers. So any concessions or compromises would be a complete defeat, and they would rather lie to themselves, deflect, play dumb, and attack all opposition than ever admit defeat. But that kind of mindset will sadly hold them back, not just in gaming but in life. It's ultimately gonna hurt them a lot more than anyone they lash out toward. Of course, video games aren't the only thing in society affected by it, far from it. But as a YouTuber who covers gaming, I noticed this phenomenon getting worse and worse in the gaming world. If you're a content creator and you're not always in line with the status quo about modern gaming or even retro gaming, get ready for some of these fanboys to lose it in the comments section. I'm sure some of them would be upset with this video as well. But show them reality. Don't change. Nobody should change because of the loudest of the fanboys or the trolls. And whether you're a content creator or just a gamer, use your logic and reason to discern whether a game is good or not. But anyways, let me know what you think in the comments, especially if you're a fan of Spiders and you've been following these videos he's been making. Feel free to discuss any instances of fanboyism gone wrong that you've seen lately. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching and I'll see you again soon.